Previously, on the One-Eyed Film Podcast.
Here's the thing. I don't necessarily know if...
Here's the thing. I know Christopher Nolan's like an innovative director, but it's like, I don't think he's going to do a 15-minute sex scene.
What would you say to them? How would you walk through them? That's kind of what mindset I want you in.
Would I walk through them?
Walk through it. You know me. I'm great with words.
But even like...
That doesn't need to be the case. And I think maybe Oppenheimer was a case that we should have done that, even though we got to look into each other's eyes.
Whoa.
No, I looked at Ellie.
Whoa.
I looked at Ellie, and Josh looked at Will. That's what happened.
The funny thing is we're technically related too, so.
Are you watching closely?
I think the danger with that, though, is at least, and this could be me, this could be knowing my boundaries. For me, I feel like I need to know when it comes up so that I know to skip forward.
Sure.
Because not knowing that and then having it like pop up.
But none of the tools that we've listed even tell you when that happens. So regardless.
I disagree.
Okay.
There have been a couple of movies where I think Plugged In might do it, where it'll like vaguely mention kind of what happens that leads to that.
Okay.
And then I know, like, okay, I'm getting to this point, pause, skip forward 5 minutes. Okay, we've completely shifted. Okay, go back smidge. Okay, this is the start of that scene. Let's go from there.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we need more resources to give like the exact timestamps.
A timestamp would be great.
I would love to start a timer at the beginning, or a stopwatch at the beginning of the movie, and then you can check it. Or
You mean in the
Well, you can
theater?
just check on the time on the.
Are you referring to in the theater?
I'm throwing it out there that there could be
Well, if you're not in
timestamp.
a theater, you can just look at the time.
It's true, but I'm saying maybe there's if you are given the timestamps, you need to know when those are coming. Yeah. But again, sometimes it's this is something I learned as a blossoming teenager from my dad. It's not the first look, it's the second look. So like things are gonna come up. You're gonna see magazines at the store. You're gonna see things like, I don't know, the situation in Utah. Like, are you gonna go search out more things from that, or are you just gonna be like, I shouldn't have seen that. I'm not gonna try and find if I do see something that looks like that in the future, I'm gonna scroll past it. When it comes to movies, it pops up and you're just like, popcorn. Looks 1, 2, 3, 4.
I think this is all really good points. I think just the one kind of, not benefit for people our generation, but the one caveat? No, caveat. Basically, just the one extra layer of difficulty for people our generation is the internet and the fact that our society as a whole, and actually we talked about this I really enjoyed the conversation with Ellie, you and I. We talked about romance, was it?
Oh yeah, I think you were on the romance one. I forgot.
So funny.
It was interesting, but I think I enjoyed it because
I did like that one.
Because it's an unfortunate fact that our society is just a lot more not sexy, but sex hungry, sex present, whatever you mean. Like you look at the 1950s, which is then nothing was perfect then, nothing's perfect now, but it's just like there's a lot more everywhere, and it's just also everything's generally a lot more graphic, and like why the PG rating system and that sort of thing has kind of not been as useful because the standards for what we accept and what people have accepted in the past is much different, and that it's just, especially with the internet, where it's just a lot harder to just try and avoid things because it's so omnipresent. It's everywhere, and in places you don't even expect to find it. So,
And going back to your original question, I think, of like how would we talk to somebody who's a new Christian for it? I think, like we kind of said, a good place to start is avoid it completely. Avoid it like the plague, as best you can. Like even with your saying of it's not the first look, it's the second.
Yeah.
Just avoid it like the plague. As don't even for the first little bit. I would say don't even go watch something that has that. Because
And I feel like a lot of people stop there.
I'm not saying you have to include it, but be aware that you don't have to shut down at a G-rated movie.
Yep.
You can move to more things.
You can handle a lot, but be aware of what you can.
being mindful of, okay, is watching this, is knowing that this could come up, going to impact me? Is that going to adjust my perspective, kind of?
Yeah. Is there anything that are absolute no-gos? Like,
Wolf of Wall Street.
In terms of, like, are we talking about specific movies and shows or what?
maybe. I mean, I said that in the first.
Rated X movies.
Well, yeah.
And 17.
Well, yeah.
I think, like, one thing I brought up in episode 0, well, like, one of the things I said in episode 0 was, like, Pirates of the Caribbean are fun movies.
Yeah.
Hardly gory, but if somebody's led astray by the women's dress style,
Yeah.
that should be a no for them. I said that if that's somebody's personal preference or personal conviction. We should be using conviction over preference. And it takes some time to develop those convictions, and it takes even more effort to establish them and follow them. And so we just want to encourage everybody to do that. And sometimes we're going to talk about movies that we wouldn't recommend for everybody. Like I said, we're probably going to do Oppenheimer Revisited. And
Arguably Avatar.
I'm saying arguably Avatar.
Oh,
is one
yeah,
of those movies that
yeah.
For some people, you should. I mean, for the longest time, that was the case for me, and I think I talked to you about that.
Yeah.
About why I wouldn't.
The
want
blue
to
person
watch,
Avatar?
Yes. Why I wouldn't want to watch that one.
Really? Is it just because
They're wearing strings, William. Most of their outfits are string related.
I guess it just.
But they're aliens. They're blue. Like some
Well,
people,
right.
that's a disconnect, and some people, it's not.
I guess I've never really thought about that. I mean, they are designed to be a bit. They are designed to be human and attractive.
Humanoid.
I guess.
Yes.
I mean, if you watch the X-Men movies too, I mean, Mystique isn't even wearing strings.
Yeah, it's like
That's an interesting situation though with her. She's technically naked.
Yeah, I wouldn't, and I don't think it's something that you should. And I'm not saying you did, but it's not something that you should mock somebody for or make fun of them for. Like they've recognized that's a personal boundary for them. I mean, the same way, going back to alcohol, the same way if you go to a bar with a friend and they say, I'll just have like a Coke, just give me a glass of Coke. I mean, most people recognize like that's a boundary. Don't cross it.
Yeah.
That's what they're willing to do. If you go up to them and you're like, hey dude, have a beer. Have a beer with me. Come on, have a beer. They're not gonna want to. They might. They've recognized their boundary. Don't try to push past their boundary because it's what you're comfortable with.
yeah.
Just because Seth's comfortable watching Avatar and I'm not, doesn't mean when Seth and I sit down to have a movie night, we should watch Avatar.
Where's the verse about that?
I was gonna say there's a good Romans chapter where Paul goes deep into this, and maybe we should just get a Bible and look it up. But
That's the one where I think he's talking about like specifically. It's like don't drag your brother down or don't cause him to stumble.
don't cause them to stumble. But also, to some they eat for the kingdom. To some they fast.
So that's the meat one I think where he's talking about like what you can and can't eat for like.
I think that's pivotal, and actually was one of the conversations I had with my pastor before I started this, because I was like, I want to make a podcast, but I don't want to just say watch all these movies that I'm watching and reviewing.
Yeah.
For one, the podcast should be a place to process, even on Discord, for movies that we don't talk about in an episode. But we also want to be like, hey, this movie I've watched it, and this is some good stuff. This is some bad stuff. But I don't want you to have to watch it to feel like you're missing out. I think that's one thing we can probably do better in personal life and in hosting the show, is giving grace and not peer pressuring into, or FOMO. That was my idea. It was like, don't instigate FOMO and be like, this movie is so good, but you really shouldn't watch it.
You know, like even like with personal convictions, it's like if watching Marvel movies is gonna like lead you to like use more profane language.
Yeah.
You know, like because most Marvel movies have more S words than I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, it gets annoying. And it's like if that's where you have to draw a line, I mean, draw that line. It's all about like what's beneficial for you as the individual.
And I'm in an interesting position with my daughter about to be born.
Yeah.
We're probably going to keep watching movies that we usually do for the next year or so. But when she starts picking up on those things, then we have to make a decision to say, one, we can watch them when she's sleeping. Two, eventually we can't avoid that, and we'll be watching Moana and Encanto all the time.
Don't forget Frozen.
You gotta raise
I was just saying that I haven't seen those movies yet,
Raise her
and I
right.
will memorize them by the end of her life.
Raise her right and have her watch Cars.
Absolutely.
What I watched as a kid, and look how I turned out.
No, but I am excited.
Perfect.
I am excited to raise her on the movies I loved, but I need to know when.
Introduce Star Wars really young.
I disagree on some of the things my parents did, and yet I respect them immensely. But I that's part of the fun of being a parent now. But I have to still make those decisions. And Plugged In cannot make that decision for me. I need to decide. And I'm glad that I've seen so many of these movies that I can be like, I love this movie. It's great. Let's watch Cars all the way through. And then when we eventually watch Iron Man 1 when she turns 13, then we'll skip the scene right after he is talking to the attendant or the reporter, because I'm like, that's a jump scare. Not a jump scare in the literal sense, but like, it's so sudden and you don't need to watch it. And so, yeah, I know that stuff. And then I can enjoy them in its own right.
Again, I think that's just the difficulty, at least for me, that I get really irritated with, is that there's so many like, oh, this would be really good except for XYZ thing, or oh, if they just cut out the scene and just be, but then it's like
It's hard because it's not mathematical.
You got to be like the guy in the Reels who like shows his son all those movie scenes. Yeah, those are so good. I mean,
Some parents do that. Some parents show their kids from a really young age, and then I think that's a desensitization for the little kid. And I don't know that that's the appropriate way to do it. But I knew friends when I was a kid who had seen Revenge of the Sith at 8, and I was like, I don't think that's okay from my perspective. And I would encourage people against it in most cases to show their kids that at like 6 or whatever.
well, I specifically remember like I was in like first grade or something. I had like there was a kid in my grade talking about watching like Saving Private Ryan.
Golly.
Thinking back on that, I'm like, what?
well, it's kind of funny just when you talk about Avatar, because that used to scare me as a kid, because I just saw like this, and I remember seeing it in a room and just running away because like blue people scary. Oh. I'm not racist. I'm just xenophobic.
Well, I got scared by the Smurfs movie this year, so.
Just talking about personal preferences, though, because I think I know I didn't try to talk about hentai, but I would just want to say that I've actually find it really interesting because I've recently been feeling a little convicted about some of the stuff that I watch, which specifically because of the fact that from my own experience, and I'm trying, and I do believe this particularly, I generally think that I'm really affected by very physical nudity in the sense that I don't care to look at it at all, but it's just that I've seen more than I'd want to, but then that, I can say that I just like, okay, it mostly gets me angry, and especially because it's to the point where in like a lot of the TV shows, it's like, okay, they're gonna have the banging scene. Oh, well, look at that. How unexpected. Like, for example, there's a trailer for like Sheriff County, which is supposed to spin off of County, which is like a very, it's a very popular TV show or whatever. And that's like, okay, I just saw the trailer for it, it's like interesting. And then there's like a hint of the shower scene. I was like, oh wow, so original. Oh, they have that. Ooh, my spicy and hot. Ooh, ooh. The things for me is like I really get irritated with that. But I think that I've kind of been convicted for some of the things that I consume, and not really so much watching per se. Because I like to read a lot of material and do a lot of just consume a lot of different things that aren't just movies. And on like YouTube and stuff like that. But I've just been like, I think I can handle it per se, but I'm also like, maybe it's affecting me more subconsciously than I would realize that. And I especially think that that's something that our generation needs to be very aware of, is that, garbage in, garbage out. We kind of say that, but I don't know if we really think about it. And I've kind of been thinking, like, there's a lot of stuff that I kind of enjoy, but I do it like, I don't really, I think that it might be affecting me in certain ways that I don't really want to. Maybe it's probably just better to just cut it off, or just the fact that I just have kind of some odd and weird tastes in the sense of just things I like to find. Like, for example, I like old monster movies. They're just like weird, just like crazy, and just like they're very low budget. Sometimes they're just a bit like from the 80s and 70s. You're like, okay, that's in there. So it's one of those things where, it's not wrong to necessarily like something that's a bit strange or odd or whatever, but it's just also, what does that do to you? And I think, especially for like YouTube and mass media, because there's so much that's constantly being pumped out. I think
Josh!
It's just really being critical about everything that you consume because it is going to affect you whether you know it or not, and you're going to start speaking or saying things like you said for Marvel.
Addition to what you just said.
What is he drinking?
Hopefully not like
Apple juice.
giant thing of apple juice. Quick addition to what you just said. While you might not think it affects you, I still don't think it's something you should watch. And I am criticizing you. I don't mean this in a critical way. Like as a friend talking to another friend, I don't think it's something that should still be watched, despite the fact that you don't think it affects you.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the point that I'm going to for a lot of stuff where it's again, what's the purpose and what is its use? Where again, I said earlier that it's part of the thing of what can you handle, but also what is the art itself? Is it good art? And I think that as Christians, we have focused on like, oh, if it's good for you, whatever. But I think that we should take more non-objective. We should take a more maybe aggressive stance. Like, I want to consume things that are good in and of themselves because the creation that God has made is beautiful and it is good, and we as created beings have the capacity to make wonderful, good art, and that should be celebrated and explored and experienced. But so not all arts may not be bad, but it may also not be good, and that might not. I think that should be kind of taken into consideration as well as like what is it for, and you should be if you have a chance of consuming something that you enjoy. But maybe it might not be wrong per se for something that is good. I think that it kind of like it is better to take on something that is good than that is not.
Josh is here, but I know that if I turn on my speakers, it's going to scream at us.
Do it.
So I'm going to turn off our microphones, so we're only going to give Josh the floor for a little bit.
Whoa, it's so quiet. I'll read you guys' lips because I know you guys don't want to cause feedback. Seth just said like and subscribe. William just said nothing. Zach is talking about his date that he had the other day with Destiny.
I'm sorry, this was a bad idea to have you on, Josh. It's just, I have three, no, because you can see, I have 3 cameras.
It's not me. It's
And I don't know, like feedback is a big thing. So we're just going to mute everything while you're talking and then unmute while we're talking.
Right now.
Yes, Josh, while Isaac is in the bathroom, I asked them 2 questions. What would you say to a new Christian? Like, how would you encourage them to go about movie stuff as they're finding their footing in the faith? And then, what are your boundaries for your own consumption?
2 great questions, by the way. Amazing questions. I can tell this was premeditated. The second question first is what I'm going to answer. My boundaries for my own viewing things is I don't want to see anything naked. That's like the number one. And then I don't want to catch myself swearing in my mind after the movie because it's one thing to hear swear words and then to like be done watching the movie and being able to leave the swear words at the movie. But if there's so many swear words that I find myself thinking the swear words like, oh shoot, or something like that in response to something, even if I'm not saying it, if I'm thinking it, that's already gotten a little bit too far. And that, if I'm catching myself thinking that, that's a big boundary. And probably ultimately, is this something I would watch with my parents? That sounds weird, but that's like a classic. Like if I would watch this with my parents, it's probably all right. I don't say would I watch this with my grandma because I'm pretty sure my grandma only watches men's choir at different churches all over the world. So
Would you watch Invincible with your grandma?
I definitely would not watch Invincible with my grandma, but I would probably watch it with my dad. So that gives you an understanding of like my dad is not. He probably wouldn't like a lot of the vulgarity or some of the jokes that they make, but he would not be bothered by the gore, which sounds weird because he loves Hacksaw Ridge. That like, come on, Hacksaw Ridge. What? Can you repeat the first question again?
72 hours later.
Okay, stop complimenting William. His ego's big enough.
Stop.
Hey, it's a pretty
I
effective
can always
shotgun
add
mic,
more.
I gotta say.
Yeah, we should have done this.
We get a J Labs sponsorship.
Oh, JLab sponsorship. That'd be funny.
Okay,
Now the
okay.
Pepsi thing goes
Question.
Yeah.
What was the premise question of this roundtable? Do you
What was?
remember? Yes.
Yeah, because you're asking Josh.
Yes.
Oh, I did ask him, and he answered.
We only
Oh,
answered the second part. You didn't know the first one.
Oh, the first one was how would you lead a new believer in their, assuming they went and watched whatever movie they wanted, and now they're a new believer. How would you guide them as a friend through their cinephile?
Cinematic
growth.
cinematic walk. Cinematic walk.
I'll turn it off.
Cinematic walk.
This is my initial thought, and I'm processing this for the first time. So hear me out. I would probably tell him something along the lines like, "You remember the grace that you received when you first got saved, realizing that everything you did in the past, like, you're forgiven for all of that? Do everything you can to extend that same grace to the people on screen and to the writers and everything like that. Because we live in a very fallen world, and there's going to be a lot of people that claim Christianity, or a lot of people that are going to make it look bad, or there's going to be a lot of themes that are just outright horrible. But we aren't out here to try and condemn it. That is not our job. It's not our job to judge it or say what's right or wrong. It's our job to love and give grace and then bring everything back to the Lord for Him to do work. It's not us that change the hearts of man, it's the Lord. And I think, especially when it comes to watching movies, it can be so easy to just be like, oh, that's sinful, and cut the world out entirely. But that's not what we're called to do. We're called to love it and to give it grace like the Lord gave us grace. And my thought would just be, just like you got an infinite amount of grace when you first got saved, do your best to give that to every single movie you watch, every single person on screen, off screen, and just make sure that your morals and your the ethics that you think of the Lord are, or the morals that you hold true to the Bible, because you're only responsible for your beliefs. You can't be responsible for others.
That kind of answers your question to a degree about you saying in not watching the 2.5 hour movie because of the 10-second scene, are you giving it power?
Yeah.
It kind of answers your question.
Yeah, I would be a bit critical of the extending grace to everything and not casting judgment. And again, this gets into one of those sort of debates that are common in Christian circles where it says, we're not called to judge the world and that type of thing, which is true in the sense that yes, we are not called to give ultimate judgment and to we don't have a say in the consequences, in the ultimate consequences of actions per se. But I would say that as Christians, we are called to make judgment calls on what is and what is presented. Because as Christians, we have a moral framework, which is not our own moral framework. We are basing it off of biblical principles. And and when we are correctly basing it off of biblical principles, we can say, these things that are being presented are, they stand up to the standards of God, or they fall short in these ways. And everything falls short, but it is. I think that as Christians, we can tend to be like, oh, well, I can't say anything because I'm supposed to be loving and graceful. And yes, that is true to an extent. However, evil is evil, and it should be called out for that.
Yeah.
Of course, there's also there's always that, not saying that I'm perfect in and of myself, but also if there is something that is evil, or there's something that is fallen or corrupt or whatever, it needs to be addressed. It needs to be called out.
I think that's very different too when it comes to movies. Like, obviously, when it comes to a brother in Christ, like, I'm going to be going to that person, like the Bible says, and like coming to them in love. But for the director of a movie, I have no idea what his life looks like. I'm not able to effectively call him out. All I can do is ensure that it is not a stumbling block for me. So giving them the grace of I don't know, distance, if that makes sense. Because if I were to go on the aggressive and say this specific scene is something that is a stumbling block to me and is not good, and then I go on the offense to try and go and work on their territory, which is whatever movie is being done. Um, I don't know if that's exactly the right call. I think the right call, uh, for what I think my relationship with the Lord has looked like, is to shut it off if it's causing me to stumble, and if it is causing me to stumble, just pray that the Lord would use it for His glory. Um, and just caution other believers that I know who are also trying to live the best life they can, and just being watchful to that stumbling block. If it caused me to stumble, it will also cause others. And I think going on the offense tends to solo yourself out, and staying together as a community in the way that we watch movies is the best way to, I don't know, combat bad scenes. Wouldn't it be awesome if every single Christian was committed to like completely stopping a movie and it would not do as good in production because they included something that Christians knew was incorrect, so they simply did not gain the attention from it. And it wasn't anything that we had to go on the offense to like do something. It was simply, no, we're going to protect our morals. And that could cost revenue for the movie. That could cost something for them, but it's not necessarily let's get into their turf and try and shut it down so that nothing they do ever again, like, they've lost all ability to make movies because they did this one thing wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And we talked in what will be the previous topic, maybe not last week, but we talked when we brought up when we talked about insomnia, sinning against your conscience. And I'm thinking about like the judgment throne. I don't think God is going to say, you heard 1,500 too many swear words for a good Christian. Or insert any other testy thing that is in movies or is in life.
Yeah.
I was thinking swear words because those are things you hear regularly in life outside of a movie. You don't often see the other stuff that we've been bringing up. But even violence, there's way more violence on social media than, especially in the last month, that has been hard to process.
Yeah.
But part of it is the second look. Like, what are you doing after you see it once? Are you turning away and not looking out for it? But also, I think what we will be judged on is you chose to go, not this specifically, I'm not a prophet, but you chose to go see this even though you knew it wasn't going to be good for you. You chose to see this because everyone else was seeing it. You chose to go see this because you needed to review it. Like, that's my pitfall, is like, I want to be the reviewer. That's maybe the only thing I would hope I get prideful about. Because like I've said multiple times, I don't want to get famous from this podcast. I just want to have these conversations.
Yeah.
But I think one thing I do fall into is like, I want to provide that review, my personal opinion for a certain movie. And that's maybe my pitfall for the Spoilers No More and Spoilers Galore on the Discord. But I don't need to do that. Not everybody relies on me. I don't even know if anyone reads those. I just need to let that go as one more thing that I should like not be so caught up in. Like, I don't need to see every movie just to see that. I mean, Ellie and I canceled our AMC A-list because, one, it's getting a little boring, but also, like, we don't need to spend money to see every single movie every single week. My parents brought us to one theatrical movie a year when we were kids, and that was enough. And yes, it's for kids' movies. Whatever. But.
Well, that's also, like, just, again, I think that for Christians, we're really going to have to start grappling with the deep consequences of the internet, which is, there's a lot of spectrum of just, like, information, disinformation, what is true, what is not, what should you be doing on the internet. There's a whole very big spectrum of things in regards to the internet, but just in regards to consumption, there's so much being produced so quickly, so often, that it's a case of, I think, again, just the golden rule of just really being critical and thinking critically and being prudent about what it is you consume and what you choose to consume. Because ultimately, while there are systems and algorithms that are designed to basically attract you to any extremity, because as long as they get views, it's still ultimately kind of your choice of what is it that I want to be looking for, or what is it that I'm going to let the algorithm continue to feed into, and that's usually negative things. So,
we should. I know Josh just joined, but we should wrap up with your final thoughts on kind of summary. Any other things you've been thinking about? Isaac found Romans 14. I don't know if you want to read that, but
crap.
you just set it up.
I found it.
Let's have him.
I don't have much else to say, so
Okay.
I'll read it.
Yeah.
Although it does seem like it's not exactly referencing what we were talking about, but it's Romans 14, starting at verse 2. One person's faith allows them to eat anything, but another whose faith is weak eats only vegetables. The one who eats everything must not treat with contempt the one who does not. And the one who does not eat everything must not judge the one who does, for God has accepted them. Who are you to judge someone else's servant? To their own master, servants stand or fall. And they will stand, for the Lord is able to make them stand.
There's others that I think it talks about one day is more sacred than another in the following verses, but like Josh, Will, and I know someone who chooses not to eat pork, and that's their decision. We can have a conversation of like why we don't think we're under that law specifically anymore, but it's ultimately personal preference, and it's not a salvation issue. So it's good to have a conversation about it, but don't get hung up on that. Don't disconnect a relationship over meat choices or movie choices. Continue to be in unity and talk it through in various settings.
I think too, like going back to our conversation earlier, where we were talking about like seeing like Revenge of the Sith when you're like 8 years old.
Yeah.
It bugs me how often superhero movies are marketed towards young families now and children, just with like the violence and profanity that's in them. It's like that can be very desensitizing at that age. And also too, along with that, it's like I would love to repost on Instagram that scene from Superman, where he gives his monologue. But it's hard to find a clip of that without Lex Luthor first going, "You piece of bleep alien."
Yeah.
It's just kind of annoying how commonplace profanity and language has become in media today. And I'm sure, if the right people see this online, they're going to call us wusses or whatever for not being able to like listen or watch this kind of stuff. But that's just
we can and
we can and we do,
but we don't like dwelling on that.
We don't like.
I like to keep a pure mind as close as I can to what God intended for me, and that's my conviction. And if anyone's going to attack me on that, then I first, in the court of discussion and conversation, I have the right to attack your opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to, because it's respectful to just let the person believe what they believe. Talk about it in conversation and not in accusation.
Yeah, I think the only final thing that I think we can all agree that is that VeggieTales is the only and all thing that should ever be watched. Everything that is the true. That is the only media canon. Everything else. If you watch anything else besides VeggieTales, you are a pagan. I'm sorry.
From now on, every episode of the One Night Film Podcast will be a VeggieTales review.
Yeah, we are going to rewatch it until the end of time.
Absolutely.
Such a good.
Next episode, Duke and the Great Pie War.
Woo!
In all seriousness, I think I tend to be a bit more. Yeah, I tend to be a bit more maybe aggressive with certain things that shouldn't be shown. Shouldn't be presented, and I think that it really irks me that there's so much things, just a variety of different things that are not good, especially because of how prevalent they are in everything. In media and just all the stuff that we consume, that it really annoys me and irks me that there's just so much of it that, again, like you're saying, that I'd like this show or TV show if not for this thing or this aspect that they just have to cram in there, or they feel like they have to shoe in there, they have to appeal to this demographic, and there's a lot of that. So again, as with everything, I think especially because we live in a very digital, media-heavy, consumerist, hyper everything society and age with the internet that it's very critical to just think, is it good? What is it, the things that I'm seeing? Are they? Is it good art? Is it objectively good in and of itself? What is the purpose of this? What will it do to me if I consume this or consume these type of genres or materials? And then and always just use the Bible as your bedrock. And that's not going to be that can be somewhat difficult because what does the Bible say about a horror movie or a rom-com movie? It doesn't talk about that, but it talks about principles. What are the principles that I want to be installing into myself and others around me, and that I want to be interacting and engaging with? And yeah, just being critical and being biblically based.
Yeah, good and right here.
I think that's kind of the final thing I gotta say.
I might get a little sermony here, but this is like something that the Lord has been putting on my heart. I was reading through Matthew, and it was the demon-possessed man, the one that was living in a graveyard, was naked, scars all over his arms. He had chains on him that he ended up breaking, and probably the most horror movie-esque part of the Bible. Absolutely terrifying to me. And this is an area that everyone knew about. The town was like, hey, actively don't go to this area because of that man that's there. Like, this has to have a reputation in the town. And yet Jesus is out here going to that person and he casts the demons out. And I can't imagine what kind of a life transformation that would be. Like, sometimes I think we forget about the Bible and how it is literally a gospel message of how you can go from something that's so horrific, horrible, and then the Lord can just get rid of all of that. So the Lord casts these demons out of this man, and can you imagine the life that he had afterwards? Do you think he went back to the town? He started working at a McDonald's, went day-to-day life, and he was just living in an apartment, and he's having a conversation with someone who's like, yeah, that crazy transformation happened. I was living in a graveyard for so long. I broke chains. My scars are actually still there, but I'm on my way out to go flip some burgers at McDonald's. I'll be back in a little bit. You wouldn't see that kind of life for him after that kind of transformation. The point in that is God's transformation for me was so great that I had to go and figure out how I can do that with the skills that I have, which is business. How can I be an effective businessman in that? And then with movies, my point in this story is, can you have a transformation and truly accept the Lord and live an ordinary life? And does your Netflix account reflect that transformation? Does your Spotify account reflect that transformation of, I have to leave that sort of life behind? Like, I was possessed by sin. Like, that is the life that I had, and I have been transformed. I don't want that to be who I am anymore. I'm not saying that so that you can't watch Netflix or can't listen to certain songs, but the way that you handle those sort of things truly tells whether or not you were transformed. Like William is saying, he's very sensitive to the type of stuff that he consumes, and I absolutely love that, because that is like proof that he had a transformation and he feels strongly about these things. Now, I don't have as strong of a sensitivity like William does. That doesn't mean I'm less of a Christian. That just means that I handle it in a way that I still feel right with the Lord and feel in my set apartedness, if that makes sense. To, like, the way that I handle it, I don't feel like I'm advertising these things like, oh, did you guys see that one scene in that one movie? Yeah, you should play it 3 times because it's a really good scene. I'm not trying to do that sort of stuff, but the sensitivity to what the world has to offer and trying to not apply that to your life, and how do you handle that? How do you handle the sin of the world is like now the battle that we face in this entertainment age of, how do I consume something without being consumed by it? It's just such a tough question. And the differences in sensitivity between Christians and believers is so hard to navigate.
We're getting pretty unhinged here.
Why are we looking on the wall?
I don't know.
Hey, you don't seem.
Why was Isaac pointing at the wall?
Because it distracted Seth while I was able to.
Oh, I see.
So I was even trying to put my arm on boundaries. I was just putting it back here.
I wasn't either. Because, slip down.
Anyways, I'll hop off of my soapbox right now while you guys go and snuggle. You guys.
Whoa. Snuggle.
Yeah.
Seems like we got some Leviticus 18:22 to go to. Is that?
I don't know that I want to look that up.
I think that's like the
I'll
one where
look
like,
it
if they're homosexual, you stone
Oh,
them or
I see.
whatever.
Probably double check.
I was gonna say greet each other with a holy kiss, so we're gonna go do that.
Leviticus 18.
This
Well,
might be
you're in the right chapter, that's for sure. What verse did you say?
22.
22? Do not have sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman. That is detestable.
All right, we're unhinged. We're gonna go eat some
Anyway,
supper.
this might be. I thought we were still sharing final thoughts.
No, you shared your final thoughts.
I have more final thoughts.
Well,
You get a thought.
You have
Anyway.
60 seconds.
Ready, go.
I want to give Seth more editing to do. Anyway, this might be a side tangent for another time,
boy.
but I want to share it now. But I think, like beyond like what the purpose of a movie is, I think it's also important to talk about or to maybe not discern's not the right word, but to analyze too how that purpose is being executed. I'm thinking about Christian movies specifically and how bad they are at executing their messages.
Yeah.
And I think when the messages are as preachy as they are, the stories aren't impactful.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said before, I think Daredevil has been more impactful to me as a person and to my faith to a certain small extent maybe
I agree.
than a God's Not Dead movie ever has.
100%. That's crazy.
So I think that's part of it too. I saw this quote just. I'm going to pass my time, but I saw this quote just recently. It's superheroes are more than just fiction. They're reflections of who we should strive to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's what
Archetypes.
Yeah. I think that's part of the reason why we watch the things we do is to see characters like that who are fighting for what's good and what's right. And I think that's why we go beyond just watching only God's Not Dead or Kendrick Brother movies. It's because we want to see characters in the real world and not just these perfect worlds, if that makes any sense. Because it's you never really see the real world in a Christian movie because they're afraid of scaring the homeschool moms or whatever.
Pretty much.
Again, we should encourage, create, and consume good art.
Yeah.
And something can have a good theme and a good message, and it can still be bad art.
Yep.
It's being in the world but not of it. It's not dwelling on the sex scenes or the violence, but accepting that it's part of our world right now and that it's something we all struggle with and fight against to a certain extent. So
Yep. This is a long conversation, but we need to cut it off at some point.
Long final thoughts.
Thanks, Josh, for hopping on for a little bit.
Thanks, Josh.
thanks, Josh.
Thanks, guys. Sorry I was late.
We're gonna wrap up and go eat some pizza. So, listener, share this with a friend. Rate us 5 stars and
Rate us 4 stars. It makes it look better.
Until next week, know that you're loved. God bless.
Thanks for watching.
Peace out, brethren.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Hey. And I'm here, so it's okay.
Oh gosh, I forgot.
That's my pickup line.
No wonder it hasn't worked.
We laugh because it's never been tried. Singles together.